And what ends up happening with a lot of people is they get to that space and they feel like they have arrived. They feel like there is nowhere left for them to grow. I wonder, what is the area in your life right now that you need to grow in? What I want to talk about is, where do I want to go? Then where do I need to grow? Welcome to the Serve One podcast. My name is Philip. I'm a campus pastor at Elevation Matthews here in Charlotte, North Carolina, and thank you for being a part of this community. If you're part of the campus, I love you. Thank you so much for being a part of the campus, for digging in, for allowing God to use you in so many specific ways. Today, I want to talk about having a growth mindset. And this is going to be a little bit interesting because some of you might judge me a little bit about what I'm going to share, but I want you to have a growth mindset. I don't want you to get stuck in a space where you feel like you have arrived, where you feel like there is nothing more for you to do, or a spot where you feel like whatever that challenge is that you've been facing for a long time, that you're not capable of overcoming it. You can move forward, and you need to have a growth mindset. The trap that I see a lot of people finding themselves in is that we want to grow and become proficient at what we do and be confident with who we are and step into situations and feel like we've achieved something, that we're the professionals at it, that we know how to do it really, really well. And what ends up happening with a lot of people is they get to that space and they feel like they have arrived. They feel like there is nowhere left for them to grow. So they stop seeking places for themselves to grow. They actually turn their brain off and think, I'm good, I can do this really well, and I really don't have any areas of growth. This is the process of moving into a lack of self-awareness. We always have areas of our life that we should be growing in, that we need to grow in order to become everything that God created us to be, or our life. Think about this for a second. God created us, and let's say we achieved peak performance at the age of 30. Well, why doesn't God just take us at that point? Obviously, if he doesn't, he is not done with us. There's something more he wants to do. And in order for us to accomplish that, we've got to grow and become everything that he created us to be. We can't just get to that place where we're stagnant and we stop pursuing growth. The only way that you're going to move forward in life, and actually the only way that you're going to avoid that place in life where you just start to die off and your dreams die and you stop pursuing, the only way to do that is to maintain a growth mindset, meaning no matter how well you do at something, there's always room to grow. So this past weekend, I did a half Ironman in North Carolina, in Wilmington, North Carolina. I've done this event the last 4 years in a row, and it went really great. I had a great time out there. It was a beautiful day. I was fighting to get a PR. My previous personal record was 5 hours, 19 minutes, and 31 seconds. And I wanted to beat that. I set that time 2 years ago. So that means last year when I did this event, I wasn't able to best that time. And I was approaching this. My training was a 4-month-long training block building up to this event. So I put a lot into this. I put a lot of effort into this, and I was pursuing it, and I wanted to be able to beat my personal record. Now, there's a lot of variables in doing a triathlon, what the weather is going to be like on the day, what the water is going to be like on the day. Are you going to have all of your nutrition? Is it going to be windy that day and affect your bike ride? There's so many different things that can impact your ability to perform on the day. But I trained for all of that, thinking that I had what it took to get a personal best, to set a record. So I get into it, have a killer swim. Awesome. Best time I've ever had on the swim. I transitioned onto the bike, and I averaged a higher miles per hour than I've ever averaged before for the 56-mile bike ride. Got off the bike, and I'm thinking, yes, I can do this. Well, one of the things that happened was in the swim, I lost some of my nutrition. I had a couple of gels that I was going to take, and I lost a couple of those gels. And so I didn't have that nutrition to take on the bike, which means when I started the run, I was at a caloric deficit. I needed that in order to be able to push. So when I started the run, I realized, oh my gosh, this is going to be hard. I'm not going to be able to push as well as I would like to push. And I went through that run, tried to get nutrients in, wasn't able to push fast like I had in training. I start looking at the time wondering, am I going to be able to beat my time? And I'm pushing towards it. It was tense for me. I'm anxious about it. Eventually, I got to the finish line and I got a personal record. I was so grateful, right? Hanging on for dear life. And I was so grateful that I was able to get there, okay? I set a 7-minute PR for myself, which was amazing. Come across in 5 hours and 12 minutes, 41 seconds. It was awesome. I'm super proud of it. Let me tell you how I felt as soon as I crossed the finish line, other than exhausted and hurting and all that kind of stuff. Mentally, this is what I felt. I came across the finish line and I had a moment of relief because I had finished the event and I knew I got my personal record. I was grateful for that. But then I also had a feeling of disappointment because the run was not what it should have been. Since then, I've analyzed the entire event and there's little areas where I feel like I can tweak in order to get a little bit better. But there's something inside of me, and this is just inherent. This is the piece that some of you might get really irritated about because you're like, you just completed a half Ironman, which is more than most people do. Yes, I accomplished that. But there's something inside of me that pushes me to grow. It pushes me to get better. I have a mindset. I have trained my mind to identify areas of my life where I need to grow. So as soon as I come across the finish line, I'm like, that's a space that I need to grow in. I need to do a better job training myself to be able to run in adverse situations and grow in that area so that I can continue to perform at the level that I want to grow in. I wonder, what is the area in your life right now that you need to grow in? I was talking with somebody the other day and trying to pull this out of them and trying to be like, hey, where do you want to grow? Like, what is the thing that you're trying to work on in your life right now? And this individual could not identify it. Wouldn't speak to it. I don't know if wouldn't speak to it because was afraid to admit that there's an area of growth or really just couldn't identify it. I'm not exactly sure what that was, but refused to state any area where they could grow. And we spent a little bit of time talking through this, coaching through this, trying to get there. And this person could not identify this is an area of my life that I need to grow. I need you to be the type of person that wrestles with growth regularly and is identifying areas that you need to grow. Now, some of you might be saying, yeah, I've actually been aware of this area that I need to grow for a long period of time, and I don't know how to get there. I don't know how to accomplish it. I don't know how to break through. And the danger is, in a moment like that, we might back off of it and give up and say, I'm gonna stop trying because that's creating too much stress for me. It's creating too much pressure for me. It's creating too much anxiety for me. And I'm not willing to press through and actually become really the person that I know I want to be, right? I talk a lot about grow and become the person that God created you to be. I talk about that a lot, but God places inside of you, He deposits inside of you the desire to grow. So that is actually coming from within you because you know this is an area that you need to grow. So what is that area for you? Where do you need to grow? Now, I typically would bring people through the process of goal setting and then breaking that down into bite-sized chunks that you can chase after, that you can accomplish, that you can break off as you go in order to accomplish the ultimate goal for your life. But this is simply what I want you to do at this point. I want you to identify, okay, where do I want to go? In my life, where do I want to go? Now, this might be something to do with your level of fitness. Like, I already have goals for what my next half Ironman is going to look like. I've already actually got another half Ironman on the books that I've already paid for. It's on the calendar. I'm preparing for that. I know it's coming up. So I usually don't spend much time down and not thinking about what's next. I'm usually putting the next thing out there that helps me accomplish and go somewhere. So where do you want to go? Now, I also know this is building towards doing a full Ironman November of next year. That's ultimately where I am trying to go, because there's something inside of me that loves to do hard things. It's an area of my life that I want to have accomplishment. I want to grow. I want to move forward. There's a lot that I want to do there. So where do you want to go? It might be something about an academic pursuit that you have. It might be something about a language that you want to learn. It could be something about accomplishing a level in your organization, growing and becoming a CEO or a COO or whatever that looks like. It might be something like that, but I want you to identify it. It could be, for some of you, I see in the future a person who is not held back by that addiction or not held back by distraction, that I can focus and I can move forward. Where do you want to go? Identify it. Write it down right now. Write that down. This is where I want to go. Now, all of goal setting will tell you, okay, make that very specific and put a time frame on it and all that kind of, like, I want to lose 10 pounds in 10 weeks, that you make it very specific so that you have it in front of you and you break it down. That's not what I want to talk about today. Those things are very, very useful. Those are tools that I use. And in fact, the reason that I was successful in this build that I just had for this half Ironman was I actually had a coach who did that for me, right? It's through an app. It's called Motiv, MOTTIV, and it scheduled my training for me. I put in there, this is when my race date is, and it automatically put together all of those micro goals that I needed to hit along the way. And I followed the plan. This is the first time that I have followed a plan as closely as I did it. I didn't hit it perfectly. Maybe that's why the run didn't quite go the way that I expected it to. But I allowed somebody else to tell me, do this, break it down. You've got this big goal out here. We're going to help you hit all the steps along the way. I think all of that is super valuable, but that's not what I want to talk about in this setting. What I want to talk about is, where do I want to go? Then where do I need to grow? There is something about the person that accomplishes the type of thing that you identified as the space that you want to go to. There is something about the person that accomplishes that kind of thing that is not true of who you are right now. How do I know this? Because if it was true of you right now, you would have accomplished that thing that you want to accomplish. You would have already arrived at the place that you want to go. So I need you to be really honest with yourself and say, okay, where do I want to go? And where do I need to grow in order to be able to go the places that I want to go? Most of the time, this is a mentality that is holding you back. There is something that you have told yourself that you have started to believe about yourself that is limiting you from going where you want to go. You've got to grow through that mindset. And like the individual I was talking about earlier, you have got to figure out a way to break through mental roadblocks in order to expose yourself to places where you are exposed to people who know how to go where you want to go. You're exposed to ideas that take you places where you want to go. You have got to break through some of those mental barriers and adapt a growth mindset in order to accomplish it. Now, a few years ago when I first started doing triathlon, I had been lifting at that point. I had lost a lot of my flexibility. I'm getting a little bit older in years, and so I'm not as flexible as I used to be, but I started running at that time. I could not run 200 yards without extreme pain in my knee. And it was all related to my flexibility and my muscles pulling on my tendons and creating pain in my knee. Now, the thing that I needed to grow in was my flexibility. I'm trying to be really, really practical here. There was something that I wanted to do. There was a place that I wanted to go. If I didn't take care of this thing right here that was holding me back, if I didn't grow through this, there's no way I would be able to go where I wanted to go. Why? Because the pain would hold me back. Eventually, I would have a massive injury, and there's no way I would be able to accomplish what I needed to accomplish. So where do you need to grow in order to go where you want to go? I want you to write these things down, identify them, write them down, and then say, this is where I need to grow in order to accomplish what I feel like God has placed inside of me to accomplish. Where do I want to go? And where do I need to grow? Train your brain to consistently have a growth mindset where you might have a massive accomplishment like I did, beating my personal record at a half Ironman, which was 5 hours and 12 minutes of pushing super, super hard. Yet I knew there's an area that I need to grow and that I can become better. Now, I went home that evening. I got some big old steaks. I made steaks, potatoes, had a great dinner. We celebrated. It was an awesome accomplishment. I'm so proud of the work that I have done because I am so much farther than where I was. But if I didn't apply a growth mindset way back when, there's no way that I could be celebrating today who I am and everything that God created me to be. Have a growth mindset. Adopt a growth mindset. If you find yourself celebrating and getting stagnant, go back to a place where you say, okay, hang on a second. Where do I need to grow? And keep moving forward. Love y'all. Thank you so much for engaging in the Serve One podcast. Like, subscribe, share this with somebody that you think it will be helpful for them, and let's all continue to grow.